All right. Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Coaching Excellence Podcast. I'm Coach DuWayne Campbell, and today I have the honor and the privilege of interviewing one of the best swim coaches that I've had the privilege to interact with, Coach Rory Alvaranga. He's the current head coach of Kaizen Swim Club, which is based in Kingston, Jamaica. Coach Rory, thanks for joining me. Thank you for giving me your time.
Uh,
And
yeah, thanks for having me here. It's a privilege.
yeah, man. All right. So I would just like for you to start off by letting some of our viewers know, how is it that you got into coaching?
Well, I used to swim in high school. Joined the team just because I could swim and not many persons could swim. And coming up, I saw my daughter who was swimming, and I saw technique flaws. I asked coaches to correct it, point it out to them. It wasn't being addressed, and I took matters into my own hands. After seeing the changes in her, I was like, okay, well, keep doing it. And it became a passion. From then, I started to do more research, met with Professor Dr. Brent Rochelle. We exchanged notes. He sent me his books, and the rest was history. I adopted his USRPT coaching methodology, and we have had a number of success with local swimmers, no-name swimmers. We turned NO name swimmers into KNOWN swimmers with the methodology.
Okay, awesome. That is a particular route that quite a few sports coaches have taken in getting involved in coaching, meaning that they've had a child that was playing on a team or that was involved in a sport that needed extra help, but did not have a viable way of getting them that help, or the help that they were getting wasn't materializing. Talk to us a little bit more about the importance of the role of the sports coach in the athlete's development through sport.
I believe strongly that the role of a coach is to convince an athlete, in our case, the swimmers, that they can do, anything that they will themselves to do, achieve anything through relentless commitment to the sport, the technique enhancement, whether it is in the case of swimming here, it's a skill acquisition sport, and the swimmer with the best technique usually comes out ahead, especially when you are a shorter swimmer, because I've had shorter swimmers who have excelled because I got them to believe that, there's nothing wrong with being shorter than the big guy, but it's just to get your swimmers to trust you and believe that you can get out the best in them.
And what are some of the tools that you use in terms of getting them to develop that self-belief?
Coaching is a rare profession, It's a coach impacts more individual in a year time than the average human being. And once you can communicate with that athlete, at their level, a senior athlete, even an animated level to an 8-year-old, you can get across to them. You use things that they can relate to, so they can oh yeah, and you get more trust out of them and more feedback from them. Scooby-Doo, oh yeah, things to get them to feedback, and then they start to believe, and you give them the instructions. No, but my main thing is that I like to demonstrate. I demonstrate because I know they use music video, and in less than a week, a new dance come out, and they can do the new dance just from actual visualization, seeing it.
Okay, awesome. And of course, lots of repetition.
Lots of repetition.
You mentioned that you're a parent of a swimmer, and that is what sparked you to get over to the coaching aspect or the coaching side of swimming. Talk to us a little bit now about the role of the parent in terms of the athlete's development through sport.
Well, the Coach, the parents are very critical. If you have a swimmer that trusts you and into you, they need the support of the family. The family support goes a far way. Okay. We know that mommy have to pack the lunches, the water, mommy have to massage the aching ankles, shoulders, just the support, telling them that they can do it, you're awesome, you know, I love you, and whatever it is, be it the tech suit, because when you know we see where some states in America have banned tech suits, be the tech suits, just the look of it that make you feel like you can swim faster. That's where the parent support come in. They lose a race, it's okay. They didn't do a PB, it's okay. You can do better. Mommy, I want to do some extra training. Daddy, can you take me to, you know, the support is very, very critical. When it's not that, it's traveling with them on to meets, taking them to meets out of town. We have a meet in Montego Bay. Parents travel with the Carifta team to Central America and the Caribbean. So it is very, very, very important, right? And teaching the child, apart from what the coach said about their nutritional, you know, intake, how you do these kind of things. And once what I do is I have sessions with my parents, because simple things, a child can train hard and just a little argument at home can throw them off on race day. So the whole, you know, the whole support of the family, loving, caring support of the athlete goes a far way.
Awesome, awesome. I remember, because I'm a parent of a swimmer myself, and I remember being addressed by another parent. They were asking me, why don't I have a stopwatch at the training session? And I said, why would I need a stopwatch? They went on to describe that to time the strokes and to time the turns. And I did not at that point understand any of those things, because I was simply taking my child to swimming so he could do what he loved and enjoyed, and trying to be supportive. However, I then realized that there are lots of swim parents who try to move over to some kind of coaching role in terms of, oh, you know, you are a little bit slow off the wall today, or, you know, your stroke was a little bit, being a little bit too critical of the athlete. Have you ever had that type of experience with a parent that would have to address that situation, you know, that maybe the real important thing was not to extend the coaching at home, but to stay on the supporting side?
Yes, quite a bit. And I laugh while you were talking about the parent who asked you about the stopwatch, because I had a stopwatch and the parent came to me and like, oh, you're into this thing, you're really into this thing, huh? I was like, I support my child. No, you have a stopwatch. You know, she said it in a demeaning way, but I was like, oh yeah. But Coach DuWayne, we can't leave the celebration of our children to anyone. We, the parents, we talk about the importance of that support role of the family. We can't leave it to anyone. But in sports psychology, I've done a few courses, and in the sports psychologists that I talk to and work with, the Kaizen swimmers, the number one problem with a lot of it is the parents. The parents, and it's, I want to say it is done in good faith. It is done in good faith, but sometimes it does more harm. There are those parents who come and tell me that, coach, I can't even talk to, you know, because they're going to tell me, mommy, you're not the coach, daddy, you're not the coach. So when you have that coach, you know, athlete bond, and they're already listening to you, sometimes the parent coming on in that manner can be a little bit overbearing for the athlete. It can confuse the athlete. And, you know, while they must learn to transition from one coach to the next, having two coaches telling you two different things at the same time, you know, can be confusing.
Yeah. All right. So, Coach Alvaranga, how is it then you have been able to navigate the space between being a sports coach and a sport parent with your own child? How is it that you've found being on both sides of this interaction, and what are some of the tips that you can give to both coaches and parents about navigating that space?
Well, prior to 2018, my daughter went to a UANA camp in Florida. I pretty much coached the coaching, and when we get home, I am daddy. You know, my daughter know very well when, hey, daddy, you hear that tone, you want something, you got it, and the next tone is for mommy. You know, they know to manipulate each other. But ironically, you asked that because I overheard one day. I'm firm, but I'm fair with my athletes. I overheard conversation one day, you know, the child, and you say my father is rough. He's only like that in training. He's only like that because once we get in the car, he's my daddy. You know, it was about a year after that that I told her that. But we may have a conversation in the car on the way home. But once we reach home and the car doors are closed, good evening, mommy. It's mommy, daddy. It's family time, and you have to separate the two. You have to separate the two. A lot of times the swimming conversation come up in the house. It's mommy, Zanita, how was training today? You know, but we usually separate. At home, it is family time. What do you want to do? We go on vacations. There's no swimming. We don't go to the pool when we go on vacations. We go to the beach, you know, that kind of stuff. But you have to separate the two of them because you can't, emotionally, you want their child to do good. But if, as a parent, one said to me in academics, what if my child is not an 80s brain? If my child is not an Olympic swimmer, but enjoys the water, you just coach that and support he or she in that manner.
All right, so it sounds like the key is having some firm boundaries, setting some boundaries between what happens on the sports playing ground and what happens once you leave the sports ground, and reverting back to parenting mode and staying in that supportive role as a parent once you're off the playing field.
That is correct, because you're not gonna, very rare outside of the training environment will you hear, or I have heard my child come and ask a swimming question. You will see her watching swimming competitions and hear her and stuff. You know, she have her fans, Alia, Sarah Horstrom, Romy Jojo, Adam Petey, you know, and she gets all worked up when their swim don't go the way she wanted it to go. But yeah, apart from that, it's, you know, daddy, can I this, can I that? I got to, you know, see a new dress here. Can you get me this? Can you get me that? Yeah, you keep that, as you mentioned, that firm boundary. Swimming is there and family life is there. And you have to be strict with that also.
Yeah. Coach, it sounds like you've had a very unique experience having coached your child from a young age through adolescence, into adolescence and through adolescence. Have you seen any particular changes as children develop from pre-adolescent and, you know, they start to mature through puberty in terms of their approach that maybe parents or coaches might fall into, you know, any particular traps or pitfalls that, you know, that they can possibly avoid?
It's even outside of the pool, just at home, DuWayne, your children mature, you talk to them about the phone, the screen time and the study time, and you get a talk back. Some of that comes in. I didn't have any issues with that with my daughter per se. She just came and she trained. She wasn't one of those that talked and joked a lot during training. She knew what training was about. And she did that. It wasn't a threat or anything why she'd do it. Because even when she's not with me, Coach Walter would say, Zanita is our business when she's at the pool. Even when everybody's joking, she's just there. During her rest intervals, it's almost like she's in the zone, figuring out how she's going to do the next lap, do the next set. And that's the kind of dedication you want. But yes, the more they mature, you will get a little bit more talk back. or every now and then I get, not even from my daughter, but every now and then I'll get to ask, coach, 4100 coach, question the training set. And it's good to explain to them why you're doing it so that they accept it and go out there and do it, 100% and not just go through the motions. But yeah, as they mature, you will get some more questions, but you have to answer them. Questions are meant to be asked, and you also get a feel of where the athlete is and how they are. Sometimes I could tell a parent, DuWayne seem a little that you can give him a few days off, and he takes a few days off and he kind of missed the water and come back. And it's actually a different athlete that you see return. The same is done with my daughter. There are mornings I get up and I leave her here. The body language suggests that a little bit more rest might be needed. Cranky being a girl, certain times. And they're like, oh, where's Anita? She's at home. Oh, she's okay. Yeah, she's okay.
I have a particular theory when it comes to coaching adolescents. And the questioning is that I don't judge them based on them questioning as in is it like a talkback or anything. I tend to question them based on the quality of the questions. And I tend to ask them, I say, ask me a question, ask me a question, ask me a question. And if any of my athletes see this, they're going to laugh because I kind of force them to question everything I do, so that I can see the quality of the thinking that's going to go into their execution once I'm finished explaining. But yeah, you're spot on, coach. I've dragged you a little bit through, the that whole seesaw balance of parenting and coaching, because it's one of those experiences that not a lot of people get to do successfully. And I think there's like a whole lot of value in what you've been able to do and the level you've been able to do it with your child that maybe needs to be expressed and put out there so that other people can try and model it and try and learn from it. There's not a lot of sports parents / coaches that have been able to do it at that level. And from my perspective, I've had a bit of that experience just for a couple of years, and it is one of the coolest things you can do as a parent. It's one of the best experiences you can have as a parent, especially when you see them not necessarily become good at it, because there's only one gold medal in every sport competition, but to see them enjoy it and to see them mature through the experiences. So thank you for sharing those experiences with us. And now we're going to move a little bit into the more hard science, more coachy type stuff that people would have expected us to talk about. So moving on to the next thing that we want to discuss. I want to know, and I guess the viewers want to know as well, because of the success that you've had, what are your views on the importance of what some people would call biomechanics or sports form or mechanics towards, sports performance and the success of the athletes?
I wish Professor Rochelle was here to hear me. It's the wherewithal of swimming. I mean, I like to stay away from Zanita because even your own Keto, I watched him in the Caribbean Games and I saw his execution and in the prelims, and I spoke to him about it. The execution, boy, you're given 110. All I'm asking is 100 so that you can keep the finesse, the technique. He went and he did it. And he was just 0.06 off of his PB, after adding a minute something in the prelims. Technique for me is king. Technique makes your, number one, it makes your swim more efficient. So you use less effort to do the same amount of work. Number two, it's the safest way to lessen your likelihood of injury, right? And in USRPT, while it is race pace, you fix the technique at race pace. You correct and fine tune at race pace because it is Principle of specificity in sports, it says that you are to train the way you want to race. And this is what we do. In swimming, you can slow down and have a beautiful technique. But the minute you start to race, some of that goes out the window. 50-meter freestyle, for example, is not a pretty race. It's not a pretty technique, but then hundreds and up, you start to see different technique. But as best you can, you want to guide those children, remind them, those swimmers, sorry, you want to remind them of the importance of technique. And I think they're tired of seeing me demonstrating, but I will keep demonstrating to them the technique I want, the model of it, the early catch. There's some biomechanics, I think only recently was added to the dictionary, because bio having to do with living organism and mechanics having to do with engineering. It's the best way for a human to carry out a particular activity. And that's what we hinge on. Most persons, one of the national coaches said that all they see my swimmers do is swim up and down the pool. Wrong. They're not understanding that USRPT primarily hinges on technique, number one. Number two, it's the psychology. And then number three is the conditioning. It's way down there that you find the conditioning. We're always talking technique because technique is the best way. And I mentioned a short swimmer earlier having to do with heights. Height in swimming is a plus. And I had a swimmer, Saida Brown, from 2018, even in the 13, 14 age group, she was shorter than some of the 11, 12 swimmers. And when she came to me, I told her there's nothing wrong with you being short. You just have to work more on your technique. And you could take down all these big girls and Goliath. And she did. She won golds in the 50 fly and the 100 fly at the Central American Games, having faced some tall Puerto Ricans and, Honduran girls. So technique is king, especially in a sport like swimming, where we are not adapted for that environment in the water. And it's just a constant preaching of the biomechanics that will get it riveted in their head and their actions.
Okay, awesome. I'm from the track and field world, and just to make it a little bit more diverse, we have technical models for all events, but then there are some breakdowns of the technical models where it comes to a basic technical model, an intermediate technical model, and an advanced technical model for each event. And it has to do with the stages of development of the athlete and what they are capable of doing as they pass through certain stages in their development. Is there a similar situation across to the sport of swimming?
Absolutely correct. Or in the event of the USRPT development model, yes. I do a lot of reading with Dr. Rod Haverlock. He's a biomechanicist, works with swimming. He has done FINA clinics. And similar to track and field, again, we have that excessive overhead movement of swimming. It's more fun and technique at a particular stage. Technique. There is the learn to train, the train to train, and the train to win category. Because as you even going to the gym, some will do gym work, and while gym will get that balancing of muscles and stuff like that, you have to teach that muscles now how to be explosive in the water. You have to teach, and as a different, you being a strength coach yourself, you teach different depending on their age and stage, the load handling, load management, and stuff like that. So yes, it is different with the younger age group, more fun, technique, than the adolescents that we get into train to train. You really now start to adjust the rest intervals. When I first started USRPT, Dr. Rochelle told me to just let the babies go as fast as they can, fix their technique, and give them 40-second rest. Told a local coach did it. Local coach said to me that, coach, we try to one day and to pop down the children. And I said, yes, it's going to pop them down, but they're going to build up. The work cannot get easier, but they will get stronger while mastering the best technique. And that is how we do it. I've recently separated the older swimmers from the younger swimmers because it's not necessarily cool to train an 18-year-old with a 12-year-old, though some sessions may have it. Because, and similarly, you can't train a 16-year-old like a miniature Olympian. You have to be careful with this. There's always burnout. No secret that swimmers get up at 5:30 in the morning, so we have to control all those factors with the different age group as we take them through the stages of development towards the elite levels.
Awesome, awesome. A lot of gems dropped right there. I'm going to ask you for a couple more gems as we talk about technique. I know that in swimming, part of the body, at least part of it, is always submerged in the water. How do you train your technical eye as a coach, as a swim coach? What do you have any specific tips or tools or strategies for training that technical eye to pick up, you know, what they're doing, especially when they're going at race pace?
You have to be quick on the eye, and Coach Ashley is one of those hands-on learning coaches. She came and I threw her in the deep end, and before she could get to reading the literature, she walked with me there, you know, okay, that's good, that's not good. And she heard the command, how I want them to correct it. And just the basic understanding of streamline. We'll speak to how the body should sit in the water. A dropped hip, not kicking, all those things, change that streamline. She picked that up from early. Once you get in your head the model of the stroke, you're looking for it. And you're constantly correcting. That is why we're so strong on the technique with the babies. By the time you reach up to true USRPT training, you already have the technique. So it's less there and now more on the lactate load, how you you handle those lactate threshold sets.
So again, technique and the psychological, and then conditioning after.
And then condition after. Technique, and more technique.
Awesome, awesome stuff. Thank you for those few more diamonds. Coach, I have another important question for you. What is your overarching philosophy on specific preparation for swimmers?
Specificity. I listened to Peter Andrews at FINA clinic, and he said, to sum it up in one word, USRPT is specificity. Track and field sprint coaches also understand that you want to train all energy systems, technique and energy systems, the way they're going to function during a race. The first time you go there and want to do good without training the way you want to race, your body is going to protest. Hey, what is this you're doing? Because I'm not prepared for this. I haven't been doing this. What is this you're doing? It's like you're adding a new, you know, 1 rep max that you have never lifted before. The body is going to protest. So you want to train everything, the technique, the way you want it in race, the energy system, the lactate, how you handle the lactate, the circulatory system, the respiratory system, the breathing. We do hypoxic training as well as we get closer to a competition. I'll give them one, sometime no breath to go 25 meters. So again, specificity, that word. You want to do it the way you're going to do it in competition. Okay. I've had my daughter at the age of 15 swim 50-meter races, long course with 1 breath. That only comes through practice. And we do that a lot of times. We do a lot of underwater works. I preach it. You know, even the walls. How do you view a start of a race? Swimmer, how do you view the turn? Do you see the turn as a, man, 1 more lap? Some of them say, yeah. But I teach that the start must be explosive. The most violent act of competitive swimming, sorry to use the word violent, but explosive, is the act of leaving the blocks and the wall. It's an opportunity to get ahead at the start. And when you turn, it's an opportunity to advance your position or pass somebody once you hold true to that underwater dolphin and trust the process of the whole coaching and technique throughout the end. When you are feeling fatigue, fall on your technique all the more.
Awesome, awesome stuff. So it sounds like, to me, it sounds like train the way you want to compete.
Exactly. I have told them it's like an orchestra. I used to do morning sessions at Immaculate, and a lot of the girls were on the orchestra playing different instruments, and I can tell them it's dress rehearsal. How many times you rehearse a song on the violin for one concert that lasts 1 hour? It's the same thing here. You're practicing for a 25-second race. All this repetition, race pace, energy levels, you know, training in the EN2 zones, you know, where you're carrying the lactate and you're really pressuring your lungs. That's how you want to function. And then we go into the visualization coaching, the psychological coaching, having them believe that they can do it.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Coach, you have given us so much to think about and consider and hopefully incorporate into our own coaching practices today. Thank you for spending some time with us. For the viewers and the listeners of this podcast, where can they get in touch with you, or where can they follow you on social media?
Well, we have Kaizen Swim on Instagram. We also have Kaizen Swim Club on Facebook page. A lot of stuff that I read, I post on there, and a lot of articles. You know, I'm very careful with what I post on those pages because I sent a video to Keto one time, and Keto said, "Coach, Mr. the man, I do." I Mr. You know, so I never want to say that. And the other part, good part, that I don't want to say. But like I said, I'm careful of what I post there in terms of reading articles and stuff like that. I just posted one about swimming tall, you know, a short while ago. For those short swimmers swimming tall, you know, don't ever think that I wish I was 6 inches more, and you know, just work with what you got and you can succeed. You can follow us on Instagram, Kaizen Swim, and on Facebook, Kaizen Swim Club.
All right, awesome, Coach. And
my contact number is on both social media platforms.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And I'm very easy to find. It's always kingleo.876. On YouTube, this podcast its home is at Coaching Excellence Podcast. And as we build out, it will be available in many more locations. So thanks again, Coach Alvaranga, and thank you, our viewers / listeners. And we hope to see you again on another episode of the Coaching Excellence Podcast.
Thanks for having me, and I hope that someone has picked up something from this session.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Stop.